Check on the live stream.
Okay, so
Live
sound
stream?
check now?
Live stream? I just have live stream, not the house on yet.
Yep.
Okay. Does that mic seem okay?
This morning away.
Good.
Sound quality.
Is this all right? Because it's literally sitting on it.
It's perfect.
All right. Okay.
That is so clear.
Yay!
Microphones are really nice microphones.
Yeah, nice. And the proximity is good, so you're not going to have any. All right, and then this is the house now, just for the room. Check. Hello. Seems fine. This is well, you're hearing both at once now.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not too bad.
It's not too bad.
Echo now, but it's not bad.
Okay. All right. I'm going
Not like
to.
it was this morning.
Yay!
So mine put to, so I can come
You don't hear any more echo than everybody else hears.
info on the display.
I'll start with that. I'll give it to you later. I don't did all night thinking. You can give me a cue. I'm on. It's very official. We're going to begin with a song. I'm assuming it's new. So for that reason, and because it's lovely to circle it around, we're going to sing it a few times through. I'll put the words over here. Let's just do it manual.
You did that earlier.
This is-
Oh. What?
Oh, draw me, Lord. Oh, draw me, Lord. Oh, draw me, Lord. And I'll run after you. Oh, draw me, Lord. Gracious God, thank you for drawing us to you, drawing us together tonight to be in a listening mode to you, to be in a quiet space with you. We ask you to bless our retreat this evening, bless our time together, and to help us be open to the gifts that you would like to give us this evening. Amen. Welcome everyone, welcome from St. Patrick's, where we are live. Really glad that you're here with me here, and also glad that you're with us if you're at St. Charles, or if you're at St. Mary's, or if you're at home on your own private viewing. You've probably heard that Lent is a retreat that we take as a community. So this is kind of like the retreat within the retreat, right? So we're gonna focus in and do a retreat for an hour tonight as part of that bigger retreat. But we are really still doing it as a community. So we're doing this together, which is great. It's kind of a quiet night, a quiet hour that we have. And there's a lot of attention to things inside ourselves, but to have the company of other people doing it with us is a powerful thing. So I appreciate your being here. Did everyone get a pen and a paper? You need that. So if you're home, if you didn't get a journal or a pen and your paper, now's the time to get that. And you're also going to need a little space. If you're watching this with someone, or if you're here, just make sure you have space to spread out a little bit, because the writing is just an extension of your thinking, right? And since no one's actually in your brain, it makes sense that you should have your own space to write. So back in the days of a monastery, right? I mean, not that those are not still real, but they used to refer to them as a cell. Your room is a cell where you go by yourself. So your paper is your cell tonight. So that's your place to be alone. So we want to have those handy. If you've never participated in a retreat before, you are fully qualified, because all you have to do is pay attention. So you've passed all the prerequisites to do a retreat really well. Excellent. Because the fact is that God has been pursuing you your whole life. And tonight you said, okay, I'll stop. I'll be caught tonight for an hour. I won't be running away, moving around. God tags you and you say, okay, I'm tagged, I'll stop. So God is delighted about this. So because of that, you can expect good things to happen in this hour. This is like, I don't know if you've been looking forward to it, but I'm absolutely convinced that God's been looking forward to it. Time with you. So I encourage you to relax into this hour and to be open to whatever gift or gifts God has for you. So what can we expect for this hour? We can expect on time to focus on God, and we're going to do different things to do that. Some music, some listening, some reflection, some journaling, and some prayer. So a variety of different things, different ways of paying attention. So let's see if we get this going now. Woo! So hopefully you've seen this before. That's our little icon for the Gritty Prayer series. And the idea is that a lot of what we go through gets buried, because we can't keep everything in our conscious attention, right? So things happen, they get buried. Or sometimes bad things happen and we bury them. But somehow everything gets buried, and some of it's good and some of it's more tricky. But that's the idea of this, that we're going to be digging around a little bit in what's buried. And this gritty symbol is not a new thing for Lent, right? We have this other really great gritty symbol, famous gritty symbol. And if you've ever touched those ashes on your forehead, they are the essence of gritty. They might look smooth, like, I don't know, like, what do they call that in football, what they put under your eyes, that kind of paint? It might look like that, but it's totally different. It's very gritty. And it does give us some gritty reminders, like life is short and I'm going to return to dust. That's a gritty reminder. Or I'm invited to make a change this season. Or this gritty cross is a sign of a sacrifice for the sake of love. That's a pretty big sacrifice. And also, let's not lose sight of the fact that you are sacrificing your hour tonight to be here. So let's see what love comes from that sacrifice. There's a little love attached to the sacrifice. So before we launch into like the heart of what we're doing tonight, I'd like us to just ask ourselves this question: what is my desire for this hour? Another way of asking that question is, what do I want God to do for me at this session tonight? We articulate a desire so that we can at least be actively looking for something during this time. We're going to be actively saying, this is what I want to have happen. And just to have that little bit of active looking kind of engages us a little bit. So we're going to take a few minutes, probably like 2 minutes, to really address that question, and we're going to write it down. What is my desire for this hour? Okay, so take a minute, think about what would you like to have happen this hour? All right. We remember as children being encouraged to pray. We get lessons on how to pray. We use famous words that have been tried and true that work for people for prayer. And we've even been encouraged to talk to God in our own words about what's happening in our lives, and especially to ask God's help in our struggles. But I'm personally only inclined to share a very small part of what's going on in my struggles, and usually it's the least of my problems. It's as if someone told me, make sure whatever you tell God, it's presentable, and it's like you're ready to present it, you've got your thoughts organized, it's kind of wrapped up nice, maybe polished a little bit, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready for the big ask. This is what I'd like, and it's a nice, presentable, or even pretty prayer, even if it's about a need. Okay, so it's like, you're talking to God here, so, make this really well thought out. And usually not even about you, come on, because we don't want to be selfish, right? So usually it should be about someone else, but definitely a decent prayer. And so everything that I've talked to God about, I've usually cleaned up a little bit, made a little bit less offensive if I didn't think about it, or maybe something that was more offensive, I wouldn't think of talking to God about it, that kind of thing. So what I present to God is very neat and tidy. So I decided it's a good thing. As a child, I decided it's a good thing to pray for these things. Help my sister, who's sick. Help me get along with my brother. Thank you for a good meeting. Help me to do well on the test. Help me get this job. The other more complicated or knotted, dark, confusing parts, I sort of buried. When I only bring out my most presentable struggles to God, I'm actually only open to about 2% of what I could be telling God, and probably only about open to 2% of what God could do for me with these things. Because I'm not looking for help on these, so I wouldn't be thinking of that kind of help. In the meantime, the things that are buried affect me. It's not that they have no effect, they do have effect on me. They make me distracted, sometimes self-punishing, aimless, distracted, lost sometimes. Now tonight we're going to focus on personal struggle stuff, personal things that are buried. But the next section is going to be more like common, communal, collective issues that we have. So we are going to hit those in the retreat, but not tonight. Tonight's going to be just our own personal history a little bit. The process will be the same, but we're going to use different topics next week. So I wonder what would my life have been like if I had thought to include grittier parts in grittier content in my prayer. So recently, Saturday actually, I was working on a creative writing project, and I was making progress, but the deadline was coming and I wasn't bringing it to a close. I probably had maybe a third to a quarter of it left, and I really needed to finish. And I had spent 3 days not making progress, just sitting down going, oh my gosh, this isn't done. And that pretty much filled my brain. This is not done yet. Oh my gosh, it's not done. And of course, I know I needed God's help, so then I prayed, God, give me the words. I need the words, and nothing happened. Like 3 days, and all of a sudden the oh my gosh, it isn't done started to expand to other things. Let's see, like I was really feeling stress, feeling the deadline pressure. Finally, it occurred to me to change how I was praying. So instead of praying, give me the words, help, I basically stopped and just described exactly what was going on to God. Just described what was going on. So it was as completely as I could. So this is more like what happened. I'm stressed out. I'm worried that this will turn out badly. I'm worried that I might be a terrible writer. I feel like, get this in order. Okay. I'm afraid I might embarrass myself. The more I work, the less productive I am. I'm freaked out about the deadline. The more time I give this, the less I accomplish, and lots of other tasks in my life are being neglected. I feel like I'm sinking. That was the content of my prayer. Notice I didn't even ask God for anything. I just said, this is what's going on. And then I just sat there in silence. I didn't even ask for anything. We're going to try that right now. And what I'd like you to do is to replay today, from when you got up to right now, and see if you can find one at least slightly gritty moment from this day. So anything, and how would you tag a gritty moment? Anything that made you uncomfortable, that bugged you a little bit, that irritated you a little bit, something like that. And I want you to choose a moment, and then we're going to kind of sink into a little bit of writing about it. So take a minute, see if you can find a memory from today that was a little bit gritty. You'll notice all kinds of things like blessings, successes, failures, awkward moments, satisfaction, feelings of emptiness or loneliness, belonging, peace, joy, frustration. So you're choosing one that had a challenging emotion attached to it. That's another way of looking at this, a challenging emotion. Emotion you didn't really like having. So what we're going to do is we're going to settle into this moment and try to describe it to God. So now when you're writing, you're going to have some more time to write. You're going to write to God and describe it as completely as you can. It's just a description. This is what happened. This is how I felt. So what was I doing when it was going on? Who else was around? It's part of the description. What were the feelings I experienced? What were the thoughts? What did I notice going on in my body at the time? Was I like moving around a lot? Was I feeling stressed somewhere? Just take time now. I'm going to give you several minutes to just sink into this and try to describe it as fully as you can. Okay. going to take about, oops, try that again with my mic. We're going to take about 1 more minute on that. The last part of this is to just take a moment, take stock of how did that feel to tell God what you just told God? Okay, it's a little reflection on what just happened. And the last thing you're going to write is tell God about that. This is how I felt when I told you that. It's a very simple thing just to add on to the end of it. Here's how I felt when I told you all that. All right, we're going to do another song. Just going to put the title one up there, Charlene. Just the next one. Oh, sorry. Next one, right there, good. So hopefully in that little prayer we just did, you felt a sense that God was saying, all of that you just told me, that's welcome. I'm happy to hear about that. It's all welcome when I'm listening. I want to hear about this. So there's this cool kind of hospitality that God offers us when we kind of upload what is going on about anything. So there's this really like a big welcome. Welcome to the hard feelings of the day. It's kind of a cool thing. So I'm also wondering if that has some resonance with you, and you also have a sense of that in yourself about the same thing. Like, the thing that bugged me today, can I say, all right, you're welcome here, that little uncomfortable moment? Can I offer that same kind of hospitality to the thing that was an irritant, the gritty thing? Okay? So we're kind of, God is doing the hospitality and also maybe inviting us into it. So when you hear the words, you're welcome here in this song, and when you sing them, which I hope you will, that's kind of a little bit of the tilt of the song tonight, okay? So again, I think it's a brand new song. It's in your hymnals now, so it's kind of cool. But it's brand new. It's still fairly catchy, so jump in when you feel like you're getting it. Thank you for singing with me. Gritty prayer can also be helpful in looking at the not so recent past. So we're going to take some time and go back a little farther. One time I remember carrying around an unsettling memory almost at the end of every day was in high school. Sure, no one else had that experience. But in particular, it was related to, I would say, my personality or just kind of how I was growing at the time. And basically, when I was at school, say in junior high, the report cards always came back, Sheila is very chatty. You know, no comment on my mind or anything like that. Sheila is chatty. So my parents were like, what's up with that? I'm like, I don't know. I had 5 friends. I was chatty with all of them. But that continued through high school. And in fact, I really was very unchatty with everyone else. I had no social skills at all. I could simply be around the people in my little tribe. Could not talk to strangers at all, like new people in my class. Like I wouldn't, if I hadn't met them when I started, 7th grade, I wasn't gonna start talking to them in the big high school. So I really could not find the words, couldn't figure out, how does someone even talk to someone you don't know? And the more I thought about it, the less articulate I got. This was especially true when it came to boys. Because in my high school, the question every day was, do you have a boyfriend? So now that was not only a question from without, it was also like, I would like to have a boyfriend. I think that would be pretty good. So I did have, a few boyfriends in high school, but it was, half of them were sort of like, will you go out with me? Yes. Yes, I have a boyfriend. He said, will you go out with me? I said, yes. So guess what? No talking necessary. We were just going out. It was good, right? But it still didn't solve the problem. And so, of course, in later high school, it's not enough to just go out like that. You actually have to go out and talk. And I was still absolutely unable to just say anything. Like, hi. And I'd be like, did I say hi or not? I'm not really sure if I said hi. And what else can I say after hi? I was really it wasn't helping. So a little background on my family. I'm one of 6 kids. We were very, practicing Catholics, go to Mass every week, went to religious ed every week, said prayer at dinner time and bedtime. My parents really instilled in us like some really good, solid boundaries. Don't do this stuff. Stay away from that. Keep your eyes on the prize. Stay clean, stay straight ahead. So what I'm about to tell you had nothing to do with how that my parents formed me. It just happened to be like how I handled it. So what I was trying to handle was, I can't talk. And what I thought was going to really help was just add alcohol and you'll be able to talk, right? Now it is true that when I would go to parties and drink, a lot more words would come out of my mouth. I'm absolutely sure of that. Whether or not I was more articulate, I'm not going to even wager, but I really thought it was helping. So now, of course, that just created a lot more stuff that I was carrying with me, because then when you drink, you have like things that you regret, things that you regret you said, things that you regret you did. But the alcohol was helping me because now I could talk, I could flirt. That's like a whole upgrade. That's a whole new set of skills. I could even make out. So all of this, just things that I couldn't do when I was sober, I could do if I had a couple of drinks in me. Now, I had no idea that it was possible to talk to God about stuff like that. And I'm sure in my little 15, 16-year-old brain, I'm like, I am never talking to God about this because I don't think God would be any too happy about hearing about this, and he'll be madder than my parents. We're going to be really mad. So it never occurred to me that I could be talking to God about this. What was happening with being insecure, with the drinking, with my shifting personal boundaries. I covered up these unsettling experiences as quickly as they happened. And I'm not even saying that I covered them up on purpose. It's just like, next, I'm probably too busy to think about it. It's certainly not comfortable thinking about it, so just kind of covered them up and moved on. Never occurred to me, I never was encouraged to go back and look over my day and notice when I felt unsettled, afraid, unsure, inferior, pathetic, unlovable, inept. Even if I had been encouraged, at that age, I might have denied that I was even feeling that. So, but it's something to think about now, something I'm a little more ready to do now. And even back then, I was still praying. I would pray about other people's needs and my own surface needs, like, help me pass the lifeguard test and help me find my call in life. I was really obsessed with my call in life. But there were other things that were so active and present to me that I wasn't dealing with. But I want my call. But now I do wonder what would have happened if I learned to pray about those things, if I had done that, if I had taken the time for this kind of reflection. And I wonder what God might have done for me if I brought these struggles to God. If I talked to God about my shyness, especially with guys, and my excessive drinking alcohol to try to deal with my insecurities, what might have been different in my high school years if I moved from pretty to gritty prayer? Well, you know what? I might have been less self-absorbed. I might have noticed that someone needed my help. Like, I cannot even remember noticing anyone who needed my help in high school. And I'm sure there were people that did, because that's high school. But I had my own stuff. I might have been more creative, not being bogged down carrying such an active feeling of inferiority. If I prayed about this, it might have been like the prophet Jeremiah, who says to God, I don't know how to speak. Literally said that. He's like patron saint of the inarticulate. I don't know how to speak. I'm too young. And I don't know how God would have responded to me, but maybe God would have said something like he said to Jeremiah. Say not, I'm too young. To whomever I send you, you shall go, and whatever I command, you shall speak. And God might have indicated that he was aware of my lack of self-confidence and my ability to speak well. After all, as with Jeremiah, God could just as well have said to me, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. He's like, of course I know you're insecure. Of course I know you think you can't speak. I can go to off. Thanks. Recently, I did an exercise that challenged me to return to a moment of great hurt and to simply describe what happened. I can't remember, I was listening to some online retreat and they said this, and I was like, well, this also goes with what I'm working up for the parish, so we can put another slide up there, Charlene. Great. I'll just take it from here. Okay. So in school, I studied music ed. I kind of wanted to be a performer, but when I heard you had to practice for 4 hours a day solo in a practice room, I was a crazy, chatty extrovert, so I knew I couldn't handle that kind of isolation, so I decided music ed would be fine for me. But even though I studied music education, I still had to do the big recital at the end of senior year. So it's a big deal. So I got a partner, she's gonna play 30 minutes of classical piano, I have to play 30 minutes of classical violin, and I have my own accompanist who's awesome. My accompanist actually was raised in Czechoslovakia, and she was on a world music tour, and she left the tour to escape the Iron Curtain that she was living behind then. So she was at my school kind of as a refugee, so it was actually awesome because she was phenomenal, and she was accompanying me. So she made me sound better than I was, so. Eva, I should call her, tell her. I'm still remembering the great music. Anyway, so this recital, I have to do 30 minutes, but I'm alternating with my friend, Maria Zapatowski. She's doing the piano parts, I'm going, so it's my turn, I'm gonna go first. I play a lovely 4-movement Corelli sonata. It's good, it's something moderately hard, easy. It's in the middle of the road, so I know I can do well. So I did well. I walk off the stage, my teacher gives me a big giant hug. She's like, I'm so proud of you. And then Maria played her piece. And then I went back out, and now that I'm warmed up, I have to play the most difficult piece of the night. And it's the first movement of Symphony Espagnole by Edward Lalo, and it is just an epic piece. It was a real, like, my teacher picked it for me as a reach, so I knew it was, you know, a reach. And I also knew the hardest part. The hardest part is actually really close to the beginning when there are these, the piano is basically playing the orchestra part, so the piano is like thinking orchestra, and if you've heard the piece, you hear orchestra when the piano is playing this huge stuff. Dun, 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 dun. And so then I played like a little easy stuff, but then piano stops, and I have these two terrific fireworks, comets kind of runs that I have to play. All the way up the neck of the violin, and then an identical one right after it. And I know that's the hardest part, and after that I can it's not all easy from there, but after that, everything is easier. So when those runs started, I could not remember, and I'm playing by memory. But when the run started, I could not remember the first note of the run. And there's no piano covering me up. This is just like, the piano's going, ta-da! Everyone's like, silence, and then the runs, right? And if you don't have the first note in a run, you can't run. So I just kind of played like, I don't know, it's kind of like if you drag spaghetti over my strings or something. It was just like, I'm just panicked. I'm like, okay, that was the wrong first note, and here comes the second run. Just as bad. It was horrendous, and it was so exposed. It was just like, and then I had to, pull it together because you get the rest of the piece. It's 10-minute piece still to go. So I was pretty good at getting back to what I had to do, but it was still in the back of my mind, so I'm sure I didn't play as well as I could have, because I'm like, that just happened? What? Of all places for me to totally fall apart, right? So I go over here, walk off stage, and my teacher doesn't hug me this time. She pats me on the back from this distance, and she leans and she goes, well, one thing's for sure, you will never play it that badly again in your life. So that was just like, so I knew I had experienced a failure, and what happened then was I took what she said to me like, no, I didn't experience failure, I am a failure. And I stopped playing violin, because that's how much that I needed a different kind of processing at the time than that. But I stopped playing violin because it's sort of like something bad legit happened, and an interpretation by someone else made me think that I was bad, right? So there's two things going on there. One is a failure, legit failure. It's only, 32 notes total. But it was a failure. But then there was this shame. So there's two things going on there, right? So you can kind of focus on whichever one of those you want. But I was definitely, staying away from playing violin. It wasn't like I played badly. It was like, I'm a bad violin player. Stayed away from it for a long time. So shame, I'll just say a little thing about shame just in case you're wondering like which one's resonating with you more, like I failed or I'm carrying some shame. So shame, sometimes it's related to something hurtful that I did, or sometimes it's related to like a regular self-judgment that seems to permanently settle in. And this is also regardless of whether or not I brought it to the sacrament of reconciliation. Okay, so even if I'm like, I did something, I wouldn't go to confession, by the way, about dropping notes. I'm just trying to connect this to another kind of shame when we feel like we did something wrong. So we have the shame that condemns myself for failures, or the shame because I did something that was hurtful that I can't get over, or sometimes the shame comes from something that was done to me because it makes me feel the same way. I'm beyond redemption. Like there's no fixing this, okay? So in doing this writing exercise, so I wrote the thing I just had you do, I wrote about my senior recital, finally. Like I've never done it fully, right? And the thing about doing it fully is that if it's something that I'm ready to talk about, I'm trying to think what led me into writing this. It was something like, if you've got a repeated memory that keeps coming up, it might be time to just fully write it down, and then you'll be able to let go of it. And it wasn't even in relation to God. I don't think that I was hearing this, but I took it to be like, I'm gonna write this to God. So in the process of writing this fully to God, I absolutely felt the whole thing more completely than I had felt it before. Okay, so I was like, what happened there? And it was two different things. I found that out. One, I messed up, and two, that just really wasn't a good interchange with my teacher. That was just bad, So like those two things. But here's the cool thing. In the process of writing it all down to God, it seemed like God found a knot in me and kneaded it out. And it is gone now. It's like, it's over. Like I don't know how many times I've told that story, and it's only been about my stupid teacher and what she said. Like I never got to tell the whole thing. And part of it was I had to go to the reception afterwards and face the public as if I had played beautifully. Hi, thank you for coming. Thanks for the flowers. Yes, isn't life beautiful, So all of that, but I finally wrote it down, and I really feel like God took the knot, kneaded it, is over. Like I completely gave it to God and it was done. So that's kind of the point of doing this whole thing a little bit thoroughly, all right? It kind of reminds me a little bit about, then you're not going to push that button if I have the clicker. All right. King David had a really good friend, Nathan, who's a prophet, but King David was fabulous, and he was a great leader, and as a good leader, one day he was standing on the top of his balcony, and he's like, I can have anything I want because I'm such a great leader. Like, I'll take her, what's her name, Bathsheba, send for her right now. You can't have her, she's married, yes, it's fine, I can. She's married to the captain of your army, it's still okay, bring her up here. She gets pregnant. He winds up having to kill the captain of the army to avoid all kinds of scandal. And I mean, it's horrendous. I mean, he's about as guilty as you can possibly be. And Nathan finds out about this, and he says to King David, I'm going to tell you a story about a sheep farmer. What do we call him? A shepherd, there we go. A shepherd who has a flock of sheep, but he has one little lamb that's his personal pet, his favorite. It's like, probably has named it, you know? And the landowner says, let's see, you're doing your sheep on my property. I'm ready for my sheep. I'm ready for my lamb dinner. I'll take the one in your arms. That's the one I want to have for dinner tonight. And David hears this from Nathan, and he's horrified. He goes, that man should be shot. I'm paraphrasing. But he just thinks that's the most horrendous thing ever that he's ever heard of. And Nathan says, you are that man. So he has the whole truth said before him, and he's changed by it. Like, he owns it. He's like, oh my gosh, you're exactly right. You have just told me my whole story. Bathsheba was the lamb, or maybe her husband was. But anyway, he has the whole story revealed by a prophet in this case, not by his conversation on paper, but he is changed by it, and he makes a new start. So we're going to do this a little bit now, and we're going to kind of go back into our own past a little bit. And we're going to ask the Holy Spirit to highlight something that we know we've been carrying for a while, but that we're ready to deal with, okay? So ask the Holy Spirit, what am I ready to deal with? And we're going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to write about this. Is a memory that we're going to uncover. Go at your own pace. You might want to write down the questions that are going to be up here, because if you don't wind up finishing it, or you feel like, oh, I've really started this, I feel like I'm well into it, but I didn't quite get it done. I mean, I am going to give you a lot of time on this, but you'll have the questions too if you write them down, if you want to review them, use them later. So we're going to ask the Holy Spirit for help on showing us which thing we should work at. So it might be a shame from something I did or something that happened, and Holy Spirit, make us brave to your uncovering. What are you showing me that I'm ready to see? So we're going to spend some time with these questions. We're going to just take about another minute. All right. Maybe for the last thing on your writing right there, you can tell God what it was like to do all that you just did. When I told you this, I felt, if you want to end up with that. All right, so first thing I had you write down when you got here was, what would you like, what do you desire for this hour? I want you to think for a second and ask yourself, did any of what you desired actually happen tonight? I'm going to ask you 4 questions to wind up. That's the first one. Did any of your desire come to pass? Second, when in the whole hour did you feel closest to God? We had some stories, we had some songs, we had some writing times. When did you feel closest to God? This third question is kind of a funny question, but when did you feel farthest from God? We're at a retreat, but it's all a spectrum. You have closer moments and not as close moments. So when did you feel farthest from God in this hour? And lastly, what was God like for you tonight? What was God like? All right, a couple bits of practical things. There is a half-sheet evaluation. Do we get those coming in? Yeah, I'd love for you to fill that out. It'll take about a minute. If you are not already on the mailing list for Greedy Prayer and you want to be, there's a sign-up out there. There's a sheet for you to take with you tonight called Try This at Home, and it's some more of this kind of practice for you to try at home if you'd like to. If you have questions about anything related to what we did tonight, shoot me an email. I will definitely get back to you. And lastly, next week we're going to be live from St. Mary's, but broadcasting here and broadcasting at St. Charles. So I really encourage you to be together for this retreat if you can. It's really nice to have other people going on it with you, even if you're not primarily in a conversational mode. But so thumbs up in the front row. Okay, they're coming back. But anyway, yes, so we are here in this place next week, and it also, you can also go to the morning session instead. 10 o'clock, St. Charles, St. Mary's are here, or 6:30 at either of those places. And of course, online if you cannot be present with the community then. So yeah, we have some water out in the narthex, and so thank you for being here. Really appreciate your company on the retreat, and hope to see you next week. Thank you.